Greetings, Enroaders. I am Lisa Loritz, and I am incredibly excited to introduce Lan Fan, who is going to bring us through a session on land the job, ditch the doubt. And I especially am excited to hear about overcoming imposter syndrome. Lan has been and is a Stanford and Harvard trained expert in global peak performance and personal growth. As the author of Do This Daily: Secrets for Finding Success, Happiness, and Purpose in Work and Life, she shares her proven strategies for achieving excellence in work and in life. Her insights have been featured in Entrepreneur, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and in Money Magazine. She is on a mission to help people unlock their full potential and lead fulfilling, purpose-driven lives. And this is incredible information, whether you are starting your career journey or you are in the middle of your career journey, as are some of our peers today. So with that said, I am going to yield it to her, and you should have control of the screen now. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Hi, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is Lan Fan, and I'm the author of Do This Daily. So I am kind of a subject matter expert on this because I felt like an imposter for a lot of my career, and especially during college. I've definitely had moments when I've wanted to quit, when I doubted my self-worth. But I'm here and I'm still standing. And, here's what I've learned. What happens to us isn't as important as how we respond to what happens to us. So the hard stuff that happens to us doesn't define us, it refines us. Let me repeat that. The hard stuff doesn't define us, it refines us, it shapes us, it makes us better people, it makes us more gritty, stronger, resilient, right? So let me share my screen real quick with you. And give me 1 second. Awesome. So before we start, I have a quick PSA for you. So before we dive in, I have a quick public service announcement. This is Sam. Meet Sam. Sam was in the first day of his internship and he was so excited. It was day one and he had his, best t-shirt on. He prepared and he was so eager to make a great impression. But then Sam opened LinkedIn and suddenly Sam wasn't so sure about himself anymore. He saw posts from the other interns, one who went to an Ivy League school, who was already building a startup, and they seemed to all have it figured out. So Sam started spiraling. Maybe they made a mistake picking me. I'm not as smart as them. I don't belong here. And that is a moment when imposter syndrome slips in. It's not a shout, it's a little whisper in your ear that you're not good enough. But here's the truth. Comparison isn't insight. It's insecurity in disguise. So I'm going to give some really tough love right now. Are you ready? No, serious. Are you ready? This is really tough. It's going to be a little bit harsh. But someone is always going to be better than you. I know we spend so much of our college career, high school, work trying to be the best. But if I'm a decent basketball player, let's say, at my high school, there's the NBA, there's a WNBA, right? There's someone named LeBron James that is going to be better than me. So someone actually forwarded to me, and this guy, Johnny Kim, is actually a real person. So let me read it to you. Johnny Kim, age 37, changed his career 3 times and has achieved becoming a Navy SEAL, a trained Harvard doctor, and a NASA astronaut. My worst nightmare is for my mom to know Johnny Kim's mom, right? Um, this is actually a real person too. Let me tell you something that took me years to learn. It's so easy, too easy, to compare your day one to someone else's year 10. You walk into the internship full of nerves and hope, and immediately you start scanning the room. You see someone who's confident, articulate, already presenting in meetings, and you start to wonder, why am I even here? Does this sound familiar? Here's the truth. Comparing yourself to other people doesn't push you forward. It paralyzes you. It shrinks your confidence and suffocates the joy that should come from trying something new. And if you're someone who's quick to compare yourself, I see you. I see you over there in that box, right? The folks who are perfectionists and overthinkers, it can feel like you're already falling behind, even when you're exactly where you need to be. So here's the new metric for success for you. You ready? Your new metric is this: you today versus you tomorrow. That's it. That's the only comparison that truly matters. Whether it's in coding, public speaking, marketing, baking, home DIY, I don't care what, right? Track your growth, your own personal growth, not someone else's, not Johnny Kim. I can never be Johnny Kim, right? I'm never going to be a Navy SEAL. I'm never going to be a Harvard doctor. I'm never going to be a NAFSA. And that's okay, because I'm here speaking to you guys. And for me, that's my big honor, right? And if you feel yourself spiraling in that comparison trap, I want you to just ease off of maybe social media and apps. Social media is not your mirror. It's a filter, and it distorts the real progress, what real progress looks like. So stop with the comparison game. Let's be real. Comparison is the fastest way to kill your confidence. You're scrolling through LinkedIn and suddenly everyone seems more qualified, more polished, and more ready. Here's the truth. You're comparing your behind the scenes, the struggles that you're going through, to someone else's highlight reel. And all of that is just curated nonsense anyway. I mean, in the comments, how many of you have ever posted something, that highlighted your life when inside you might have been sad or hurting? Let me know in the comments. How many of you have ever done that? I know I have, right? I've posted amazing pictures of me by the pool where inside I was just like worried about, where my next paycheck would be. Stop playing a game that was never meant to be fair. The only person you need to be better than is the person you were yesterday. And so I love this quote by Theodore Roosevelt: comparison is a thief of joy. And let's be real, it's also the pickpocket of peace as well. You know, I know it's really hard not to stop comparing yourself to other people, but you never know what training advantage or what other people had to do to get where they are, right? Even Zendaya had an awkward phase, right? Go look up her early Shake It Up clips if you don't believe me. Now she's an Emmy Award winner. She's a fashion icon and she's still humble. She ran her race. She didn't compare herself to others. Here's what you need to remember. Joy comes from within, not comparison. Comparison is always going to warp reality. It's going to breed insecurity as well. It distracts you from your own path. You can't run a race if you're looking at someone else's lane. Your journey is custom built for you. So stay in your lane and own it. The only person you need to be better than is a person you were yesterday. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share you a little bit of my story for some of you that went to my last presentation last year, you've probably heard this story, but I'm going to say it again because I think it's important for the message in our current talk. So my family, when I came to America, my family were wartime refugees. And I grew up in my mom's nail salon in Inglewood, Los Angeles. And I just remember I started when I was probably 6 years old or 7 years old. And I started making money sweeping hair from the ground whenever my mom got a haircut. And then one day, sorry, slides are doing some weird stuff. Okay. Um, second. So I grew up at my mom's hair salon, and one day when I was 12, give me one second, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. Um, give me one second. Okay. So I used to make money sweeping hair from mom's floor. And then when I was 13, one of the beauticians showed me how to do acrylic nails, and I learned how to do acrylic nails. And I started making $100 a week. And one day I went to my mom and told her, I'm going to quit school and become a nail technician. And that was the last day I went to my mom's nail shop. She never told me why. But after that day, I started to go to the library every day. My father was a broken man. He was kind of mentally abusive to the kids. And so I tried to stay away from his wrath. So I'd go to the library every day. And one day I, just started to join extracurricular activities. And I ended up graduating and going to Stanford University. And you would think that that would be the celebration moment that I finally found my way. But what ended up happening was on my freshman year of Stanford University, I almost quit probably 6 times. And I remember one time I was with my friend Raul, and I just remember confiding in him that I wasn't smart enough. I don't know how they must have made a mistake when they let me into Stanford because who was I, this poor Vietnamese kid from Inglewood, California, to get into this Ivy League when all of my other classmates went to these elite private schools. And I just remember him giving me a bear hug. And he just said it would be okay. The next morning, I was in my dorm room and there was a note underneath my door. And it was a note from Raul. And it simply had this Toni Morrison quote: "If you want to fly, you need to give up the shit that weighs you down. If you want to fly, you need to give up the shit that weighs you down." And I realized what I needed to give up was the self-doubt, the stories that I wasn't good enough. And then another incident in my freshman year that changed my life was I took the psychology class. And in that psychology class, we read a book by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, but he wrote this book called A Man's Search for Meaning, and he created a branch of psychology called logotherapy, which is about finding purpose. And I just remember reading it and highlighting the book and rereading it over and over again. And there was this line that changed my life, and it was this: between the stimulus meaning what happens to us, and our response, how we respond to that situation, lies a space. So between the stimulus and the response lies a space. And in that space lies our freedom and our happiness. The power of our response changes everything. And so I realized that I wasn't a victim of my circumstance, right? I had always I always had the power to shape my destiny. I couldn't control the fact that I grew up poor. I couldn't control that my father was mentally abusive, but I can control how I reacted to the situation. Life wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me, and there lied my power. So what you listen to and who you listen to is what you become. What are the stories that you're telling yourself? And what are the stories that other people have told you that you now believe? Because what you listen to and who you listen to is what you become. My friend is an elite performance coach for high performing athletes. And she worked with the NFL, NBA, etc. And she had this one problematic client who was just so rude to her. Every time she asked a question, it was yes, no answers. And one day she was so frustrated. She was like, "Why don't you like me? Why do you speak to me that way?" And he paused for a second, shocked, and he was like, "No, I really do like you. I'm just a bad speaker." And she said, "Who told you that you're a bad speaker?" And he thought back to his first day in second grade, and he was so excited. He brought his first day of school clothes. He was so excited to read out loud. The teacher went around, and it got to him, and he started to read, but then he started to stutter, and the teacher just stopped him. "Stop! You are not a good reader. You're not a good speaker. Just stop." And my friend paused for a second and asked him, "Who's telling you that story now?" And he said, "Me." What are the stories that you're telling yourself? Because your stories are creating your destiny. I finally figured out why my mom stopped me from coming to the beauty salon years later. I was watching a documentary about Quincy Jones. He's one of the most renowned, producers of all time. And he talked about his experience growing up in the South Side of Chicago. And his mother was in a mental institution, and his father was in prison. And he was hanging out with the wrong crowd. One day, he met someone that changed his life. He met a traveling musician, and he was awestruck. He looked at this guy and he said, "You make music as a musician, or you make a living from being a musician?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, I've traveled from London, France, etc." And that moment changed Quincy's life because he was able to see a different world. And in that moment, he said that it changed his life because what we see, we want to be. What we see, we want to be. And just seeing that musician taught him that there could be a different way, a different story, a different life. Because what we see creates our beliefs, and our belief creates our story, and our stories create our future. So to change today, to change your future, you need to change your story. According to the National Science Foundation, the average person has between 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Of those, 80% are negative and 95% are repetitive. So the voice in your head saying that you're not good enough isn't your enemy. It's actually there to protect you. Humans are actually hardwired with a negativity bias, right? We naturally focus more on negative thoughts than positive ones because evolution taught our ancestors that we needed to prioritize negative information over positive information, right? So whenever we saw negative feedback, we needed to quickly ascertain whether that tiger chasing us was a threat or not. We needed to know whether that poison that we had on the tree was going to kill us or not. And it would trigger this fight or flight response in our bodies. So that fear you're feeling right now, and when you try a new situation, is natural. It's not just you. Everyone feels that because your brain is trying to protect you, right? Here's the difference. The last time I checked, there's no more saber-toothed tigers trying to chase us. Instead, it's a job interview. Instead, it's a bad boss. Instead, us being in front of a computer all day, feeling stressed because we got that email from that passive aggressive coworker, right? but the same negative emotions and noise, the mental, physical feelings that we're feeling is the same feelings that our ancestors had. And I know what you're thinking right now. Lan, you are the worst motivational speaker. When is this going to get positive, right? Here's the thing. You've always been the author of your story. You've always been the main character of your story. So stop acting like a sidekick. I want to go back because I told you about the whole story about me finally realizing why my mom stopped letting me go to the hair salon, and it was because of this. She understood that in the 70s and the 80s, I'm a lot older than you guys, the only options for Vietnamese refugees or women at that time was to do nail and hair. That's why when you're in California, a lot of the nail technicians are Vietnamese women. And there's nothing wrong with being a nail technician. Many nail technicians make more money than me, probably. But my mom wanted something different for me. She didn't want me to be smelling chemicals all day. And so she knew that I needed to change my story. And I couldn't be, because what you see, you want to be. And all I saw were Vietnamese women, nail technician. So she wanted to change my story. So I just want to remind you, stop acting like the sidekick when you're the protagonist, you're the hero. Stop waiting for someone to save you when you have always been the hero in your story. We can't control what life throws at us, but we can control how we respond to those situations. Between the stimulus and the response lies the space, lies your power. Life doesn't get easier, but we get stronger. So if you aren't happy with how your story is going, change the ending, add a chapter, add an addendum, rewrite the whole book if you need to. You're the author of your story, and you always have. And just remember, confidence isn't the absence of doubt, it's action despite it. Start when you're scared. Self-awareness is actually a strength. The goal isn't to eliminate this imposter syndrome because we all feel it. It's natural, right? Feeling like an imposter doesn't make you one. And one of the most powerful effects is the Dunning-Kruger effect, is when someone thinks they're better at something than they actually are because they don't know enough to see what they're missing. So while some people, people who do know a lot, people with imposter syndrome, often underestimate themselves because they realize how much more there is to learn. So workplace example, you have two interns and it's the first week. Intern A walks in with over the top confidence. We all know this person, right? This intern. And they say something like, this project is easy. I don't even need help. But then they start making basic mistakes and they don't even realize they're making the mistakes. While intern B, that's probably you, quiet, thoughtful, ask questions, they say, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right. But actually, they're the ones that do the project very well and catches details that the other people miss. Sound familiar? Intern A is experiencing the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's overestimating your ability because they don't yet know what they don't know. Intern B might be struggling with imposter syndrome, underestimating their ability, even though they're the most competent person in the room. Now, isn't that crazy? And I just want to tell you this because it's super funny, but it's actually a true story. Let me introduce you to one of the most confidently wrong person in history, MacArthur Wheeler. It was 1995 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. MacArthur believed that he had discovered the perfect way to rob a bank without getting caught. You ready? Ready for this? He straight up put lemon juice all over his face. He rubbed it all over his face. Why? Because MacArthur heard that lemon juice can make invisible ink. And he thought, if it hides writing, maybe it'll hide my face from the security cameras too. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. So I don't want to hear about any of you guys trying to rob a bank with lemon juice. So to test his theory, he took Polaroids of himself, but when he couldn't see his face in the photos, he figured it worked. But here's the thing, he just didn't aim the camera in the right direction. So when he didn't see himself, it wasn't because of the lemon juice, he was just pointing at something else. So with nothing but lemon juice on his face, he walks into this bank, and not just one, but two banks, and he robbed them in broad daylight, right? No mask, no disguise, no nothing, just citrus and confidence. He was confident, right? So naturally, he was caught in a few hours. And when they showed them the footage, he was shocked. He said, dead serious, but I wore the juice. What's the lesson here? The story becomes a foundation for the Dunning-Kruger effect. The idea that people with low ability often overestimates their confidence. And the flip side, people who are actually competent tend to underestimate themselves. Which brings us to imposter syndrome. If you've ever thought, I don't belong here, they're going to find out I'm not good enough, I'm just lucky, you're not alone. In fact, it likely means that you're actually more capable than you give yourself credit for, because the people who don't know that they're not doing well, the people who don't know what they're doing often don't even question it. So the next time you doubt yourself, just remember, you're probably not MacArthur Wheeler, and you didn't wear the juice. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. The smartest people often feel the most imposter syndrome because they understand the depth of what they don't know. And let me take you back a little bit moment. I used to be a behind the scenes kind of person, right? I was the planner, the prepper, the person who just got everything done. And I used to tell myself, I'm not a good public speaker. I actually told myself I had a fear of public speaking. And people don't believe me when I say this, but I actually had social anxiety. I was super shy growing up, and I would see people, and I mean, forget public speaking, I just couldn't even speak to a person sometimes. Like in my 20s, I had a real fear of social anxiety. And so my comfort zone when I was first starting off in my career was the behind the scenes person making the deck, never presenting the decks, but doing the decks. And I felt safe. But here's the thing. I lived comfortably in this comfort zone because I felt like I was in control. I was good at it, as long as I wasn't the one holding the mic. But then life kind of gave me a nudge, and actually it kind of gave me a shove, right? I was asked to speak at a team event when my boss fell sick. Just 5 minutes. I wanted to say no so badly. I almost did, but I said yes. And here's the thing, I was making my boss PowerPoint deck for years anyway. He was just the one presenting it. So I knew the information top to bottom. And that threw me straight into the fear zone. I started comparing myself to polished speakers I saw online, the ones who seemed so confident, so charismatic. And I thought, they must have something that I don't have. And my imposter syndrome kicked in. I started doubting every word, every slide, every story. But you know what? I had my doubts and I still showed up. And I kept on showing up. And when I did, something shifted inside. Not immediately, but slowly. I got feedback. I watched recordings. I learned what worked and what didn't. I stopped chasing perfection and I started getting curious. And that's when I started entering the learning zone. I wasn't magically fearless, but I was getting stronger. I realized public speaking is a skill, not a personality trait. I was not born a public speaker. I had to get better at it. So I just focused on getting a little bit better each time. to speak from my heart, and to show up even when my voice shook. And over time, I found myself in the growth zone. I now get to speak in front of thousands. I get to speak to you, lovely people. I've delivered keynotes in the United Nations, Fortune 100 companies. I've spoken all over the world, universities like Stanford and NYU. And that's not to brag, but that's just to tell the audience, for folks who are in the audience that are scared of public speaking or suffer from social anxiety or are an introvert, that you too can be on this stage. Here's a truth that I want you to carry. Imposter syndrome doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you're growing. That growth, that fear you're feeling means that you're getting out of your comfort zone. So that next time you feel the flutter in your stomach when you're about to raise your hand and lead a meeting or try something new, don't shrink back. That discomfort, that's not failure. That's your invitation to level up. So moving from the comfort zone to the growth zone is scary. The voice in your head is going to say, I'm not ready. I don't belong here. What if they find out that I'm a fraud? But here's the truth. That voice doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're growing. See, you could have stayed in your comfort zone, but instead you took a chance on yourself. You took a jump and you entered the growth zone. It's when you take that step into that unknown. When you say yes to something that's scary, when you apply for that internship or that job, where you speak up in the morning meeting, that uncomfortable, feeling that you're getting, that's your brain rewiring. That's courage and action, right? That's your future self cheering you on. But you don't get to the growth zone without going through the fear zone. You just don't. But the difference between someone who stays stuck and someone who levels up is that they feel the fear and they do it anyway. So if you're feeling imposter syndrome right now, take it as a sign. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Exactly. You're not an imposter. You're just in the middle of becoming. And that's a powerful thought. If you can change your story, if you can change your thinking, you can change your life. And I always talk about growth mindset, fixed mindset. Stanford professor Carol Dweck studied the power of mindset over 30 years ago. And she studied these elementary school students for 30 years. And she noticed a certain pattern that some students did very well in life and others didn't. And after studying the behavior of these children, she coined the term growth mindset and fixed mindset. So those with a growth mindset viewed intelligence and abilities and talents as learnable, that you could get better over time with time and effort. Those with a fixed mindset viewed those same traits as inherently stable. I was either born with talent or not. Here's the important takeaway. Your view of yourself and your view on whether you can grow or not can determine everything. If you believe that your qualities are unchangeable, the fixed mindset, you will want to prove yourself correct over and over again. The power of believing that you can do. And I want to remind you all, you can do hard things. Growth is hard, but you know what's even harder? Looking back 5 years from now or 10 years from now and wondering what your life could have been if you had just bet on yourself. Here's the thing. Life doesn't get easier, but we get stronger. Remind yourself that you can do hard things. When time gets tough, I often repeat this mantra, you can do hard things. I often catch myself repeating this verse when I have to face one of life's biggest challenges. Assembling IKEA furniture. So freaking hard, right? But when you're assembling, IKEA furniture, it's overwhelming at first, but what do, right? Tell me in the chat or the comments, what do? You put all of the different parts in order and you tackle it one step at a time. So what seems like overwhelming, you just kind of break it down to small pieces. And that's just like life as well. However, having a growth mindset is not a magic pill. You have to act. If you have to have the mindset, but you also have to act. Once again, confidence isn't the absence of doubt, it's the action despite doubt. Because we are what we do daily. In fact, habits determine 95% of our behavior. You need to create daily systems for your success. Whenever you feel imposter syndrome, it's important for you to just kind of have the systems in place to just kind of guide you back into what your ultimate goals are, whether it's to succeed, it could be reading each day, it could be waking up at the same time, exercising, building a strong community. And I love to give this example of Jerry Seinfeld. When he was an upcoming comedian, he made a commitment to write one joke a day. And one day, this comedian, this upcoming comedian, went up to him and said, "How did you become the best comedian in the world?" And he simply said, "Don't break the chain." And then he started to explain that when he was this poor, broke, comedian with maybe $10 in his bank account, he had committed to writing jokes for 5 minutes a day, and he would put an X in the calendar. And his goal was to not break the chain. Every day there would be an X. So before long, he had a growing chain of X's on his calendar. And it was a visual reminder of the consistent work he put in. So do something related to your craft every day. That's how you gain confidence. That's how you banish imposter syndrome, no matter how small the action is. Because people don't decide their future, they decide their habits, and their habits decide their future. Every day, you're voting for the person you want to be through your actions, your decisions, your habits. Are your habits aligned with the type of person you want to become? What's a person I want to be? You have to ask yourself every day, what's a person I want to become? And what are the actions I need to do today to become that person? So now I want to talk about the 8 actions you can take to banish imposter syndrome and follow it up with 5 things to remember. The first one is name it to tame it. Let me tell you a little secret. Your brain loves clarity. But when you're feeling anxious or nervous or insecure or a total imposter, your thoughts start getting cloudy. You spiral, you overthink, and suddenly you're in your head questioning everything. Am I good enough? Do I belong here? Are they going to find out I don't know what I'm doing? Here's where the magic of this simple phrase comes in. Name it to tame it. And these are actually psychological recommendations, like that psychologists will actually recommend to their patients. Psychologists use this strategy to help people calm their nervous system. Why? Because when you put a name to whatever you're feeling, your brain switches from the panic mode to problem solving mode. So I'm feeling anger. Why am I feeling it? And it's a reminder that you're also putting space between that emotion and that feeling and yourself. It's not that you're anger or what do we say? I'm angry. You're kind of giving that power to that emotion. Do you get it? So instead of I feel blank, say I'm feeling nervous because I want to do a good job. Instead of saying I'm overwhelmed, try I'm in the fear zone right now, but that means that I'm growing, right? Let me give you a real life example. When I first started learning how to speak publicly, I didn't even know what I was feeling. I just remember my heart was beating really quick. And I just thought I was going to literally die, right? And then I started telling myself, okay, that feeling I'm feeling is nervousness. But one of the things that I did that shifted everything was I was like, instead of saying that I was feeling scared or nervous, I would say, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to speak to you all today. So that feeling, your body doesn't know the difference, your beating heart between fear and excitement. So tell yourself you're excited. And when you name that feeling, you can control it and you can mold it, right? Track the facts, not the feelings. Let me tell you something that I wish someone had told me day one of my career. Feelings are not facts. Your brain might feel like you're failing, like you're behind, like you're not enough. But here's the truth. That's just the inner critic talking, right? Remember I said the 12 to 60,000 thoughts, 80% are negative, right? Those are that's your inner critic talking. And that voice, it's lies. What the fact that they're not, your thoughts aren't necessarily facts, they're data, they're receipts. And one of the things I always recommend to young professionals is to create a brag folder in your inbox. Screenshot every email from a coworker that said you did a good job, or maybe your manager told you that you had a really, let's say you had a good performance review. Write down every time you spoke up in a meeting, even when your voice shook, right? And, write down when you finished a tough assignment or asked a bold question. And I call it my confidence file, right? Because when the doubt creeps in, and it will, you don't want to argue with your feelings. You want to pull up the facts from your brag folder, right? This isn't about arrogance. It's about evidence, because you have done hard things and you want to remind yourself that. Reframe self-doubt as growth. The voice that is whispering in your head, you're not ready, it doesn't mean you're imposter. It means that you're in this moment of growth. And so when you're doing something brand new, maybe your first real meeting, presenting an idea, giving feedback, your brain alarms are going to go off. And that's not because you're failing, it's because you're stretching yourself. So let me give you an example. Remember the first time, think about the first time you might have gone to the gym, or, went on a first date or something, whatever it is, right? You're nervous, right? Maybe it's like riding a bike, let's say. The first time you ride a bike, you're nervous, you're scared, but eventually the more you do it, it just becomes natural to you, right? And that is an example of growth. In the beginning, it's scary, but now if I were to tell you go ride a bike, you could get on, no fear, no hesitation. I want you to remember this and repeat this mantra, right? If I already knew it all, I wouldn't be learning anything new. If I already knew it all, I wouldn't be learning anything new. So that next time you feel that flutter in your chest, that voice that says you're not good enough, pause, breathe, and say, this is growth. This is expansion. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. You're not faking it. You're becoming it. So I just wanted to show you some examples of reframing your story. From I'm just a college student to I'm bringing fresh perspective. From I lack experience to I'm eager to contribute and grow. I'm not qualified to I'm qualified to learn and add value. Another important thing to do when you're facing imposter syndrome is to talk about it, right? And a lot of times it's so hard for us. I know it was for me to admit that I didn't know something. Actually, I was talking to Lisa before this call, and just about asking for help. And she gave this amazing story. And Lisa, if it's okay if I share your story, where it was like her last senior year of college. And she just broke down to her mentor and just said, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my gosh. And she had never asked for help before that, but it's her senior year and she doesn't know. And that one conversation, because she didn't even ask for help, but she was freaked out. And so her mentor was like, listened, wrote down some ideas and said, oh, well, you have this special ability to do this. And it actually led to her finding her dream job, right? The power of asking for help, right? It's not just you feeling nervous, right? You're not the only one wondering, am I good enough? You're not the only one thinking I must have slipped through the cracks, because I know I thought I've slipped through the cracks many a times, right? Here's the truth. When you talk about it, your fears, your doubts, your I don't know if I belong moments, you start normalizing it. And I always say, when you shine a light on the things that you're afraid of, it loses its power over you. All the shame. I was so ashamed of being poor. I was so ashamed of being this Vietnamese refugee growing up because I was made fun of it. And that is my superpower now, right? Even growing up poor, it's like I've learned the value of money. I can hustle more than most people. And I wouldn't have learned that if I didn't have the struggle. What you're afraid of, what you're ashamed of might be your superpower. And when you talk about it, it loses its power over you. Progress over perfection. Okay, let's get one thing straight for all of you perfectionists in the room. I see you. Perfection is a myth. The goal isn't to be perfect. I mean, honestly, do you like hanging out with perfect people? I know I don't, right? The goal is to progress. The goal is to get better. You're not here to be flawless and the perfect person. You're here to learn, to stretch, to just get 1% better each day. Perfection tells us that, don't try unless you know you'll crush it. That was me. There's so many things in life that I didn't try because I was so afraid of not being good at it. Right? Try anyway and grow in the process. You don't build confidence by waiting until everything is perfect and aligned, right? You build confidence and you get better by doing, failing, learning, and repeating it over and over again. So raise your hand for that project even when your voice shakes. Submit the draft even if it's not perfect. Show up even when you're nervous. Because every step forward, no matter how messy, is a win. Progress over perfection, always. And one of the best advice I got um, was one of my English teachers at Stanford. And I had writer's block. And he simply said, write for the wastebasket. Because I was waiting for this perfect thought to put down on a piece of paper. And he said, just write for the wastebasket. So in life, live your life without that fear of like being judged for not being the best, and just have fun. Do it for the journey. Invest in yourself. Let me tell you something no one teaches enough. You, I'm looking at all of you right now, right here, all of you. You are your greatest asset. And you, looking at all of you right now, are the best investment you'll ever make. Not stocks, not crypto, not your next job title. You. Every time you raise your hand to ask a question, every book you read, every course you take, every mentor you talk to, that's not just learning, that's compound interest on your future. Think of it like this. Company invest in products. Leaders invest in people. You right there, you've got to invest in becoming the kind of person that future you will be proud of, will think. Because no one is going to care about your growth and your career and your well-being more than you do. Okay, maybe your mom, but other than your mom, it's going to be you, right? So take the class, ask for feedback, take that risk, stay curious, say yes to learning, and even when it's uncomfortable, you need to get better on purpose. And focus on how you talk to yourself. Replace the I don't belong here to I'm learning here. One of my secret tricks is to add yet. Whenever you hear yourself saying negative, oh, I don't know how to do that, add a yet, right? I'm not good at it yet, right? I'm not a good public speaker yet. Adding that yet changes everything. But be very cognizant with the words that you use. So let me tell you something that's surprising about imposter syndrome. Sometimes the fastest way to quiet that voice in your head that says you're not good enough is to turn around and help someone. When you mentor someone, when you share what you know, you start to see how far you've come. You realize, oh, wait, I've actually learned a lot. I do have something, a value to offer. My good friend Brad Montague is an author as well, and he has this wonderful quote that I often use. Be someone you needed when you were younger. Be someone you needed when you were younger. That quote lives rent-free in my heart because when I was first starting off, I didn't need a superhero. I needed someone or that was 2 steps or 1 step ahead of me. Someone who said, "Yeah, I've been where you are. It's messy, but you'll make it through." And here's the truth. You don't have to be perfect to be a mentor. You don't have to be the best. You just have to care. You have to be present. And when you lift someone else up, you lift yourself up too, because nothing builds confidence like contribution. So here are 5 things to remember as I kind of close things up. One, so 5 things to remember. Tough days are a part of life. Tough days are inevitable, but they're not permanent. So when you feel that self-doubt in your head, when you feel that can't go another day, maybe you failed a test, maybe you had a fight with a friend, or you just woke up in a bad mood for no reason. When it happens, it's easy to spiral and said, my life is falling apart. I've been there, but here's what I've learned. A bad day is not a bad life. In fact, bad days are like training rounds, beta tests for the future you. Each time you go through one, you're building muscle for what's ahead. It's okay to rest and ask for help. When life feels out of control, our instinct is to tighten up our grip and try to fix everything on our own. If I just keep it together, maybe this will pass. But here's the truth. You don't have to carry it all on your own. It's okay to pause and rest and ask for help. Bet on yourself. One of my favorite quotes is this: a bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not in the branch, but on her own wings. Meaning, it's a powerful metaphor for self-belief and inner resilience. We can't control what happens to us, the branch, right? Like our job, our relationship, external situations. They're going to change. But what matters most is your ability to rise, adapt, and trust your own strength. Believe in yourself. Tough days can mask in your head, but just know that you can. Focus on what you can control. When life feels chaotic, like everything's falling apart, it's easy to feel powerless, right? But here's the key: focus on what you can control. And tomorrow is a new day. So, you know, just remember, even when you have a bad day, tomorrow can be a new day. So here's the experience paradox. I'm going to wrap this up. A lot of you guys are going from interns to looking for your next job. And there is, for many of you, this experience paradox. You need experience to get experience, right? Every frustrated job seeker ever. Here's what I've learned having hired hundreds of people. I've hired hundreds of people, right, in my career. What hiring managers actually want. In your head, you're thinking, I don't have the experience. But what hiring managers actually want, spoiler alert, it's not perfection. It's the ability to figure it out. It's perseverance and grit. It's being easy to work with and coachability, right? And that's an attitude. As we go into this AI revolution, hard skills are going to be less important. What's going to be more important is your emotional intelligence, your EQ. What counts as experience? Class projects, presentations, volunteer work, life experience, side projects and hobbies, internships, and part-time work. I want you to take 5 minutes today and list 5 things you've accomplished, any context, Create a brag book, right? For each, identify the transferable skill that you can bring. Practice articulating the impact, not just the task. And I want you to give yourself a 90-day strategy. The first, week 1 and 2, listen and learn. Ask questions. Week 3 and 4, find some quick wins that you can do. Maybe speaking up during a meeting, maybe volunteering to organize something for your boss or to connect with someone. Month 2 and 3, building whatever your personal brand is, what matters to you, right? And I want you to remember that everyone successful in life has felt like an imposter syndrome at some point, right? Maya Angelou, John Steinbeck, Albert Einstein. They've all felt like imposters. Confidence isn't built overnight, it's built through action. Start before you're ready. Your challenge this week, apply to one stretch opportunity. Practice your confidence introduction. Help someone. Wrapping this up, imposter syndrome is normal. It means you care about doing well. Confidence is action despite doubt, not absence of fear. Hiring managers want candidates with a growth mindset. Your perspective is valuable. Preparation builds confidence, so do the work. Everyone starts somewhere, even the people you most admire. And your imposter syndrome isn't proof that you don't belong. It's proof that you care about doing well. The world needs what you have to offer, even if you can't see it right now. And the fears we don't face become our limits. So stop focusing on what you lack. Stop focusing on the fear and focus on what you can do daily to get you where you need. Whenever you feel fear, I want you to remember this acronym. Fear is nothing but false evidence appearing real. Remember that fear overestimates the threat and underestimates your ability to deal with the challenge. So whenever you can move past the fear and the need for perfection, you start realizing that becoming your ideal self has always been about pushing past your personal fears. The goal is to be brave, not perfect. Final thoughts. Just start. Start scared. Start with your hands trembling. Start with fear. Start with doubt. Just start. When everything seems overwhelming, don't look at everything you need to do. Just take that first step and then the next step. I always think of Lao Tzu's quote, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step." Focus on that one step. Be brave enough to suck at something new. Every master was once a novice. Everyone has to start somewhere. Be okay with being terrible in the middle of the beginning. Be okay with being mediocre in the middle. And if you're having fun, be okay with whatever level you're at. Just be brave enough to suck at something new. And look around you. Look at all the little tiles right there. This is your community, the INROADS community. There's no such thing as an overnight success. None of us can do it alone. And final thought, consistency. That's it. Stop making things so complicated. If you want to reach your goals and achieve your dreams, be consistent. Change takes changing who we are, and what we do daily is how we do it. If you want one of my free ebooks, you could just scan this picture right now and sign up for my free ebook, or my book. But I want to leave you with my favorite quote from Hunter S. Thompson. The journey to the grave should not be with the purpose of arriving safely in a well-preserved body, but to slide in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly worn, totally tired, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow, what a ride." Thank you, everyone. I think our time is up. If you have any questions or anything, I don't know if we have time for a minute of questions or anything, but I want to thank you for making it out today. Lisa, is there anything we need to answer or anything?
I have been monitoring the chat in case there were some questions. I have not seen any. There are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of thank you messages, and I'm going to echo such incredible insight. We so love it when you come to spend some time with us. Notice I said us because that information is applicable to us wherever we are in our careers, and it's always helpful to have the opportunity to reflect and to reset. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We are in your debt. And I can't imagine that our interns aren't going to find a way to connect with you, whether it's through LinkedIn or some other medium.
Yes,
So
find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram, and you could see dorky pictures of me and my daughter. We just went to a Stray Kids concert. It was amazing. So if you want the behind the scenes, find me on Instagram, and then you can find me on LinkedIn. And I am so proud of you guys for showing up. I am so excited to see the amazing things that you're doing. I mean, I feel confident about the future if you guys are like the future leaders that are going to be, running this country. So thank you all for coming, and excited to see your next journey. Bye, everyone.